We are live now. This is Faika. Hello.
Yes, in a minute. It's 10:59.
Yes, we are on live now.
Okay, thank you very much. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning and good afternoon. It is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of United Nations Human Settlements Program in this session organized under I4C conference. The title of our session is Developing Enabling Environment for Urban Low Emission Development under Paris Agreement, Upgrading Conditions in Urban Slum Areas. The purpose of the session is to demonstrate the importance of GHG emission reduction in urban areas and how to support urban slums environment and living condition improvement with greening cities. So starting with the proceedings of the session, I would like to invite Mr. Jomyo Nam, who is the Chief Technical Advisor Climate Change in UN Habitat. Please, Jay, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Paika. Greeting from the Busan, Korea, and behalf of the UN Habitat. Very thank you to all your contribution and the participation today. The Paika already explained about the purpose of session and title, and then Mr. Jawed Ali Khan, Pakistan office, the HPM country director of the Pakistan UN Habitat Office will provide the very good remarks. So I tried to provide the very short background of the why we doing this kind of the initiative, and then why we are working on the session. UN Habitat and GCOM, we working for the climate change mitigation program in the South developing country. And GCOM and UN Habitat, we working for try to invite that very innovative solution for the climate change mitigation. So our project, Pakistan project, was selected for this session, and then we can very honorably we can organize this session with the supported by the UN Habitat and GCOM today. Today, maybe I can invite the Jawed Ali Khan for the keynote speech, but I can very briefly provide the name of the contribution today. Mr. Mohammed Azim Kosso, Director of the Ministry of the Climate Change, and then Mr. John In-hyun, General Manager of the Global Business Department, Korea Land and Housing Corporation, and Mr. Wajim Hatbaja, Executive Director of the Naya Pakistan Housing Program Development Authority. And then Yasmin Nari is the CEO of the Heritage Foundation in Karachi, Pakistan, and Grace Lee, CEO of the Gaia Consult. Very thank you, nearly thank you to all your participation. And then I nearly thank you to all other audience today. So I invited Jawed Ali Khan for the first remarks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. It's my pleasure to welcome all the participants and the guest speakers and UN Habitat colleagues. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from UN Habitat Pakistan office, and a very good morning, afternoon, and evening to our guests. Globally, the South Asian countries are among the most vulnerable countries to the climate change impact, such as heat waves, storms, floods, sea level rise, and droughts, affecting every year our countries, and we have to bear huge loss to our economy, lives, and property. Pakistan's GHG emission per capita is less than 1%. Actually, it is 0.8 tons per capita as compared to 0.81 tons in 2030. The GHG emission grew by 89% over a period of 1990 to 2012, averaging just under 3% annually, whereas the GDP grew by 136% during the same time, averaging 4% annually. With the carbon intensity of Pakistan's economy at almost 4 times the world's average, there is a huge potential to reduce Pakistan's GHG emissions relative to GDP. Despite less than 1% of Pakistan's GHG emission to the global warming, it is ranked as fifth most vulnerable country according to Climate Risk Index 2020. Pakistan is confronted with serious threats from glacial melt, floods, droughts, and sea level rise, with increasing vulnerabilities and intensities in the rainfall and temperature. Our cities are experiencing recurring urban flooding, water scarcity, urban heat island phenomena, etc. The heat waves in June 2015 took 1,200 lives, which is a clear indicator of climate change and environmental challenges. Karachi is the most vulnerable, is the largest metropolis of Pakistan, and is bearing the brunt of the climate change impacts most seriously, and similar is the case with all our major cities. Pakistan is being the most urbanized nation in South Asia with 36.4% of urban population. The urban population has almost doubled from 43 million to 75 million between 1998 to 2017. About 40% of urban populations live in 9 major cities, having populations exceeding 1 million. More than 50% of the population of major cities live in slums and squatter settlements, locally known as Kachi Abadis, due to housing deficit, which have increased from 4.3 million in 1998 to 9 million in 2015. Due to widening gap between housing supply and demand, these issues lead to difficulties in leading an urban life. These issues are not, if these issues are not tackled, it will create, make the cities extremely unlivable, and the problems will surmount to the extent that it will be difficult to manage, because this role of the cities, as it is said, is the engine of growth and development. So if we are not able to keep pace with this growth and manage the challenges, it could be extremely difficult to arrest the deteriorating trend. However, the government of Pakistan is seized with the challenge and is committed to overcome the impacts of climate change triggered by triggering adversities. The Parliament of Pakistan adopted SDGs as the national goal, and is working on localization of SDGs in its national context. The government has launched 10 billion tree plantation program to reduce the overall impact of global warming. It has introduced local manufacturing of electric vehicles, as well as modernizing mass transit system, metro bus and metro trains. Further, it has developed guidelines for the development of green building code for Pakistan. In addition, it has already adopted green building practices in the Prime Minister's 5 million Naya Pakistan housing program. To address the issue of urban slums and Kachi Abadis, regularization improvement program has been initiated with UN Habitat and the government of Pakistan, with the technical and financial support from the government of Korea. under SDM, CDM mechanism. LH and EWP are the partners. The aim of this program is to reduce GHG emissions through application of innovative and green technologies. We are confident that the climate change impacts can be minimized through adoption of science-based solutions and innovations, as well as by building partnerships for inclusive, resilient, and sustainable solutions. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jawed, the country director of the UN Habitat Pakistan office. That is what the very excellent remarks about the climate change issue and the vulnerability and the Pakistan government direction and the policy guideline about the climate change and then urban issue. This time I think we can invite the Minister of the Climate Change, Mr. Mohamed Ajim Kosso, and we can hear about his idea and the Pakistan government direction on the climate change mitigation and GHG emission. Thank you very much. Mr. Mohamed Ajim Kosso, please.
Thank you to invite me for speaking. Distinguished delegates, Assalamu alaikum and very good morning. On behalf of the Ministry of Climate Change, I wish appreciations to UN Habitat for organizing this session and Innovate for Cities Conference on developing and enabling environment for urban low emission development.
Sorry for inconvenience.
Crisis of COVID-19
okay.
and climate change with rapid increase in population. The climate risk index has indicated and placed Pakistan among the top 5 most affected countries around the world and is facing annual floods, droughts, smoke, sea level rise, and deadly heat waves as well. Pakistan is susceptible to heat waves due to the phenomena known as heat island effects. This causes temperature increases of 5 to 8 degrees centigrade higher than the countryside due to trapped heat from the brick and mortars of built environment of the cities. In 2015, the severe heat wave that struck southern Pakistan registered temperatures as high as 49 degrees Celsius and claimed the lives of almost 1,200 people in Karachi alone, a first in the country's recent history. Ladies and gentlemen, Pakistan has placed great emphasis on climate change policy, planning and implementation, closely aligned with its strategic for achieving the sustainable development goals and its objectives as well. Government of Pakistan has taken several initiatives for lowering GHG emissions, including Clean Green Pakistan program. Among them, 10 billion trees Tsunami project and launching of e-vehicle policy, which is adopted as the latest lower emission development strategy mode of transportation in the country. Moreover, Ministry of Climate Change is working for green of building sector, and in this regard, in collaboration of UN Habitat, Ministry of Climate Change has developed policy guidelines for green building code. Was prepared and now green building guidelines for Prime Minister 5 million housing program is prepared, which will be piloted in the Prime Minister Naya Pakistan housing scheme, which aims at reducing greenhouse gas emissions in Pakistan's construction sector. Moreover, in collaboration with the East West Power Company, Korea, and Land and Housing Department, Korea, a project is started for developing enabling environment for urban low emission development strategies. Further, the Ministry of Climate Change in process of reviewing the NDC's nationally determined contributions of the country. All of those initiatives combined will significantly contribute to greening the country and reducing emissions in Pakistan, so the people of Pakistan can better prepare for the local impacts of global warming that await in the not so far future. I'm sure this will promote green development policy directives and strategies on greener urban environments as a crucial pathways to localizing the sustainable development goals and limiting global warming as outlined in the Paris Agreement in 2015, which was unilaterally agreed by the country parties in Paris. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Azim Koso, much appreciated. I think that the Ministry of the Climate Change is our key focal point of this project, and then the GHG emission reduction in the city. And very thank you to the cooperation with the UN Habitat and our donor and the Land and Housing Corporation in Korea. Thank you very much. So now I'm invited the LH, Korea Land and Housing Corporation General Manager of this project, Mr. John In-hyun, and then please greeting him for the project owner, and we can work together for the GHG emission reduction project in urban slum area in Pakistan. Thank you, Mr. John, please.
Thank you. Okay, can you see the slides?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good morning or good afternoon. I'm In-hyun Jung from Korea Land and Housing Corporation. Thank you very much for inviting me, and happy to have this precious opportunity. Let me begin presentation by briefly introducing about LH. LH is a 100% government-owned enterprise under the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure, and Transport of the Republic of Korea. It is established by the LH Act to improve people's quality of life and to support economic development through land development and affordable housing. Total amount of asset is around 160 billion US dollars, and annual budget is about 45 billion US dollars. For the last 6 decades, LH has developed around 1,000 square kilometers of urban spaces, which is 1.5 times larger than Seoul metropolitan city. Also, LH has supplied 3 million affordable housings for low and middle income households. Adding to that, LH is moving its focus on urban regeneration, housing welfare, and extending its project locations to overseas countries. After the Korean War in 1950s, the government's top priority was to provide basic necessities to the people, and basic infrastructures were required to facilitate economic development. But Korea couldn't expect private investment at the time, so the government established state-owned enterprises for basic SOCs. Korea Land Corporation and Housing Corporation were also established in 1960s and 70s to facilitate and implement land development and housing construction, which are now merged into LH in 2009. Rapid economic growth gave rise to rapid urbanization, and urbanization also gave positive impact on economic growth through agglomeration economy. However, urbanization also caused urban problems, and the biggest problem was lack of housing. So the government announced the plan to develop 2 million housing units through new townships, and LH started developing 5 new townships since 1980s. While developing 5 new townships, LH focused on the basic elements to improve living environment. Well-organized urban planning was introduced, and efficient infrastructures and utility systems were provided. Governments or municipalities may invest in urban development using its own resources, which is from taxpayers' pocket, or private sector may invest in development projects if they are financially profitable. And here is another way of funding for urban development that LH is applying. LH invests its own resources in urban development projects, including infrastructures and public facilities. Revenue from land sales covers all the expenses for infrastructures, and the infrastructures are contributed for free to municipalities, which account for 50% of the total project area. LH also builds homes for sale, which are sold to middle-income households at market price, and rental housings are leased to low-income households at income-based rent. We generally get loss from public infrastructures and rental housings, so we cover the loss using the profits from land and housing sales. Nowadays, LH is focusing on regeneration of existing urban areas. Redevelopment of old buildings, which has safety issues, is traditional way of regeneration to bring economic development and improved living conditions. However, redevelopment contains negative aspects such as demolition of buildings and resettlement issues. So we are focusing more on revitalization of existing homes and buildings on the basis of demands from local residents. Let me introduce an example of LH's redevelopment project in Mumbai, India. The state government of Maharashtra owns thousands of quarters for government workers, but those are almost 60 years old, which have safety issues. So the state government decided to redevelop the old properties into new quarters, high court buildings, as well as the public spaces and smart city infrastructures. Korean government is supporting the master plan of the project and reviewing the possibility to provide bilateral loan. While LH supports the state government to plan and prepare the project development, LH also plans to co-invest with the state government in the resettlement buildings and smart home project. As you can see in the example of BKC project in Mumbai, redevelopment has quite clear funding structure. Upzoning is used to increase building spaces, and increased spaces are used for extra housing units after providing resettlement homes. Some of those can be provided for low-income households, and we can sell some of the housing properties in the market to cover the redevelopment cost. However, revitalization does not generally have clear funding structure because it does not contain upzoning, rebuilding, and property sales. Government may invest its own resources to improve urban environment, but it increases taxpayers' burden. Households may invest their own money to renovate their homes, but it's not affordable to most of low-income households. So we found a way to use the clean development mechanism and to use the revenue from the CER sales as the alternative funding sources for urban revitalization. Currently, we are studying the way how to participate in urban revitalization in Karachi using the resources from CER sales. As a public agency, LH pursues public interest rather than pursuing maximum profit. Through this project, LH expects to contribute to improving living environment of slum areas while contributing to global greenhouse gas emission reduction. At the same time, LH expects to meet LH or Korea's emission reduction target while providing emission rights to Korean industries. Currently, LH and UN Habitat is collaborating with each other to find the potential neighborhoods eligible for revitalization projects, level of living conditions, population of neighborhoods, average income level, and many other aspects are considered when we find potential sites, and local residents' willingness for revitalization is important. So we are trying to have collaborative discussions with the government of Pakistan, state and city government, and local communities before we decide the final project site. We are at the very beginning stage of this project, so we are still studying on the methodologies to apply to this project, but I would like to introduce some of the potential methodologies that we are considering. We are studying on restoration of damaged walls using energy efficiently produced bricks, and those bricks can be used to set the walls to separate spaces for female family members. Solar panels can be established to alternate energies produced using biomass and fossil fuel, and street lights with solar panels can be established for crime prevention. Water purification facilities using membrane filters can provide clean water that the residents don't have to boil water using biomass. We are thinking of a pacing approach when we implement the project, and for the pilot project only, we are expecting to reduce 1 to 2 million tons of greenhouse gas emission. LH has limited knowledge, capacity, and human resources to find all the demands from the local communities and municipalities. So we expect we can have extensive collaboration with many stakeholders to make better quality of life in slum areas in Pakistan. Currently, LH is closely collaborating with UN Habitat on project development and implementation. We also need collaborations with the central, state, city government of Pakistan to find the local demand. Through the support from the local government, we expect to have close conversations with local communities that we can have the best solutions to meet the needs of the residents. Korean industries are also essential part to secure investment resources by selling CERs in the market. We all know that we need revitalization of slum areas and we need emission reduction, but it is implementable only when proper resources are secured. So to make these goals actually achieved, it is important to design clear funding and implementation structure. I believe we can create a great model for urban revitalization with emission reduction when we have collaborative discussions with UN Habitat and the government of Pakistan. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John In-hyun, about the project, the overview of the LH funded the project in Pakistan with the UN Habitat, and then we are looking forward to your contribution to the Pakistan and then more collaboration with the national and the city government and UN Habitat. For that one, I think that we can invite the Naya Housing Pakistan Development Authority Executive Director, Mr. Wasim Hawat Bajwa, for his remarks and then his presentation. Thank you very much. Please, Mr. Bajwa.
Thank you very much, Mr. J. I just share my presentation.
Can you share by yourself, or do you need?
Yes, I'm sharing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ikram, can you check
Is it
whether the
okay?
co-slides are with Wasim Bajwa or not? No, sir, we can't see your slides actually.
Yeah, let me
Ikram,
try.
can you give co-host rights to Wasim Bajwa?
Who?
Wasim Bajwa.
Okay.
Thank you. Sir, please now try to share your screen. Yes, we can see your screen now.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sir, if you are having difficulty, we can do it for you.
It's better because I am unable to see on my desktop.
Jahangir, please share presentation of Sir Wasim Bajwa. Jahangir? Hello, sorry for
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
it's
can
fine.
you-
Yeah, thank you. I got it now.
You can see that.
Yeah, thank you.
It's already there.
Okay, may I start? I'm audible, hopefully. My
Yes, yeah, Wasim Sahab, you are audible. Yes, please.
So I'll briefly explain the Naya Pakistan housing program, and I just try to establish its link with the theme, basically that is of upgrading conditions in the urban slum areas. I believe that it is only possible through an organized and planned housing if we initiate at the government level. And this is the missing link, which through this program we have tried to establish. This is the basic stats, why it is required, why is the demand to initiate such a huge and ambitious program. We have already, with the population of 220 million, annual growth of 2.4%. The existing annual demand is 1.1 million. It may escalate to 15 million in the next 15 years, the next 5 years. Existing demand and supply gap is 350,000, that is per annum. So to reduce this gap, government initiated this program, and the idea was to not only to just reduce the demand and supply gap, but also to create a business environment where some economic activity is created. For that, the government has declared the construction sector as industry. And then by virtue of the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, and other macroeconomic development projects, already the economic activity has geared up. Next, please. Now, coming to the Naya Pakistan housing program. Obviously, because there was at the top level, at the federal level, there was no proper authority which could steer this program. So to address this issue, the Naya Pakistan Housing and Development Authority was established in 2020. The Naya Pakistan Housing and Development Authority primarily plans for urban, peri-urban, and rural areas. So it is covering all the aspects, the urban areas, then some projects in peri-urban, and then the second phase, we are also going for the rural areas. For that, it is not possible because we are going for affordable housing. We are looking at low-cost units. So government provided this cost subsidy of 30 billion, which has to be dispersed to the 100,000 families who, in the first instance, and every family will be given rupees 300,000, which is a support for their construction. The business concept of Naya Pakistan Housing and Development Authority is on public-private partnership model. We are engaging the private sector. We are also engaging the provincial governments, the local governments, and the development authorities. Basically, this authority is establishing a linkage between all the authorities to steer this program and have its impact on the grassroots level. So far, we have started some projects, and about 25,000 units are under construction, which are with the help of the provincial governments like Punjab, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and Sindh, and also AJK and Gilgit-Baltistan. And we have also started some projects with the development authorities like Lahore Development Authority and Capital Development Authority. The major initiative will be through the private sector. The private sector has already accepted and they have given a huge response in response to our expression of interest. And we have received 200 UIs for which they plan to launch about 2 million housing. But the process has started, and so far about 8,000 units we have finalized, and we are in the process of building. Next, please. Now, the incentives, in addition to the cost subsidy, there are other incentives required, which are given by the government. And no doubt, these incentives have never been given in the history of Pakistan. Just to boost this program, just to keep it rolling, I've already told that the construction sector already granted status of industry, basic tax incentives given for the builders and developers, exemption on withholding tax, reduced advance tax, and a big reduction in tax liability for the low-cost housing. Any tax payable on income, profits, and gains of projects pertaining to the low-cost housing, like of Naya Pakistan and Asas program, that tax liability will be further reduced by 90%. And we have given exemption on capital gains. At the approval regime is always at the local level, that is always at the grassroots level. All the approval of housing projects is to be given by the development authority. So we have just tried to facilitate that approvals and try to speed up the no objection certificate in this regard. We have also requested the provincial governments to provide the basic trunk infrastructure for these projects, because if that is not there, it is not possible, the project is not feasible. And if we have to invest on that trunk infrastructure, then obviously the cost will increase. Naya Pakistan Housing and Development Authority has initiated a process through NADRA, National Database Registration Authority, and we have registered the low-income people who have salary ranging up to 40,000. In the first instance, we intend to give them the cost subsidy. We are giving them the mortgage subsidy, which I'm explaining in the next slide. Next, please. Another important issue is the financial aspect, because that was a major missing link. The concept of mortgage finance was still not prevalent here. Only 0.25% of the GDP we have given mortgage loans. And also there were some issues of foreclosure which we have addressed. But now we have streamlined that process, that is of mortgage financing. the funding, the development financing, and particularly the State Bank of Pakistan played a pivotal role in coordination with Naya Pakistan Housing Authority. And we have mandated the banks to increase the housing and construction financing to at least 5% of the private sector credit, and which amounts to about rupees 235 billion. The government has also separately allocated rupees 34 billion for the markup subsidy. The actual discount rate in the market or the policy rate is above 7%. So we are giving these mortgage financing on a very cheap rate at 3%, and the gap is again funded by the government. What we are planning, we just at low-cost housing unit up to 850 square feet covered area, and the government is providing the banks are providing 2.7 million finance for that. Then another important aspect, that is the real estate investment trusts are established, and some are established and other will be in the process of establishing, so as to provide the developers with building finance, as to provide an alternative to the equity injections. The general reserve requirement has been withdrawn for low-cost housing again to facilitate the banking sector. Loan to value, now it is 90-10. Low-cost housing has been given a low-risk weightage from 35 to 25%. The CRR, capital requirement regulation, and statutory liquidity ratio have also been improved. Now the maximum size of housing microfinance, another important aspect. We have also just geared in. We have included the microfinance institutions into the housing sector. The microfinance institutions also from the NGO sector like Akhuwat, they are pitching in, and they are and earlier that amount was only 0.5 million. That has also been increased to 2 million. Next, please. In addition to that, general reforms have been done in the housing sector. I was telling about the foreclosure laws to gain the trust of financial institutions, building laws, particularly by the metropolitan authorities, development authorities, reform undertaken particularly for the ease of doing business. We have established the automation that to force them to adopt the automated softwares for approvals, simplification of process for construction permits, then computerization and launching of e-stamps, online availability of land record. Another major initiative taken, that is the cadastral mapping of whole of the Pakistan of the land record, so as to digitize the land record, and the land transfer issues and the land identification issues could be resolved. The master planning of all the major cities have again been reinitiated. Earlier it was there, but now every city will be master planned. And this is an important aspect which will definitely help in the reduction of urban slums, because we will have planned cities. We will restrict our planning as per the land uses. Again, in addition to this, we have also started some urban regeneration projects. We are starting a project in Karachi on the state land, and then we are also collaborating with UN Habitat, architect Madam Lari is there. We are working on, though maybe the things are a bit slow, but the resolve is there and we are working on it. And hopefully this aspect of urban regeneration and upgradation of slums and Gachi Badis will also be dealt in the due course of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Wasim Hayapazar, Executive Director of the Naya Housing Pakistan Program Development Authority. I think that we can hear that the very comprehensive program direction and then incentive what the Pakistan government intended for the 5 million housing program in Pakistan. I believe that Mr. Jawed, country director of the Pakistan office, he already discussed with you about the like a long-term and mid-term plan with the LH project. I think that in this event, we may discuss a little bit about how we can set up the direction later Yeah, so thank you very much today. And I believe that the next one is the Yasmin Nari, CEO of the Heritage Foundation. She is a very excellent, very active with the architecture of the carbon zero housing in slum area. Can you invite the Yasmin Nari? Are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much, Jay, for this
Thank you.
opportunity. And
Please, yes.
well, good day and assalamu alaikum to everybody from Karachi. I'm just going to start my presentation. Just bear with me for a moment and let's see if we can get to it. Yes, and then this. So, of course, my title is Creating Carbon Neutral Environments and Zero Carbon Housing in Urban Slums. And there have been some excellent presentations, and I think most of the issues have been highlighted. But I'd like to focus on a few things and something that we've been trying to do in the last years. Just to let you know that we're a social and cultural entrepreneur organization, a non-profit, which has been working in disaster areas and you know, in all the flood and earthquake areas, particularly since 2005. And basically, we started doing this whole zero carbon kind of construction since 2009, when we've been using a lot of bamboo and mud and lime. So it's creating carbon neutral environments and zero carbon housing in urban slums. This would be the title. And then we've devised something called the barefoot social architecture for providing both social and ecological justice for those who live on the margins. Our topic today is for urban slums, and I think it's very important for us to understand that 50%, more than 50% of people are today living below the poverty line. And I believe in every city, more than 50% are living in urban slums. So it's a huge number that we have to tackle with. So we have developed several ways to pursue goals of carbon neutral environments as well as zero carbon housing for highly degraded environments. This is what we see in our cities today. Both strategies are important for upgrading and restructuring urban slums. The challenge of climate change, of course, as so many have mentioned, the greenhouse gas emissions are there. And of course, now the added factor is COVID-19 that we must also now consider when we're designing our urban environments. They all need urgent attention. And they're all now interlinked also, whether it is fulfilling the Paris Agreement or the Sustainable Development Goals, or indeed the pandemic, which all require that we take care of health of both humans and the planet. Both are important now. As we know, urban centers are considered by many to be global warming battlegrounds, and we should now remember that they are also the pandemic front lines. This is what is happening in all our urban centers. So Heritage Foundation believes in the application of eco-urbanism to create carbon neutral environments and in zero carbon sustainable housing, affordable housing for urban slums. So the imperatives, as you can see what they are, and then the principles that we follow are 3 L's: least water consumption, least waste stream, and least energy usage. And the 3 zeros, which are zero cost to the donor, zero carbon, and zero waste, leading to zero poverty. So let's go to the next slide. This is now to do with the impact of the present construction that we are all concerned with, because as we know, it's a total disaster what's happening with the use of so much concrete and steel. And you can see that 40% of world energy is used and so on. You can see in the slide as to what the energy requirements are. And to show that, you know, the high emissions that are associated with the materials that we're using today. And what is now important is the use of alternative, more sustainable materials that must be taken priority now, or given priority. So I advocate the use of zero carbon materials, which are the materials locally sourced, and they are mostly earth, lime, and bamboo for all structures, large or small, and we use them to a great degree. However, because of the reluctance among many designers in the use of such materials, at the least we should all aim for hybrid construction, which is a combination of high carbon reinforced concrete frame and zero or low carbon infills and finishes. I would like to share with you our zero carbon housing approach developed under the tenets of barefoot social architecture. So but first, let's look at these materials. I wanted to introduce earth and lime and bamboo, which are there and we know them, but they are hardly used, and especially not in the humanitarian field. So earth, we know, is available in Pakistan in abundance and can be used from one province to the other. Lime is something that's been used for centuries and really is a very good alternative to cement. And bamboo, of course, is something also that has amazing qualities. So these are the ones with sustainable attributes that will not harm the planet at the time that we provide, at the same time succor to the marginalized as well. Importantly, in the last several years, through our zero carbon methodologies in seismic and flood prone areas, we have demonstrated the efficacy of this approach and have been able to save hundreds of thousands of displaced climate migrants living at the bottom of the pyramid. And that's what I think our focus needs to be. Oops, I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not moving. Let me see. Now, what we do is normally we need to really use these, basically locally sourced materials. And as you can see, this particular unit was built after the floods of 2010. And we have been able to introduce best practice construction techniques even to the non-literate. Thus, they have been able to build DRR compliant housing that will withstand any foreseeable disaster. The principles have been tested in the field as well as in the laboratory. It is evident that such safe and strong structures reduce the danger of collapse and prevent displacement of hundreds of thousands of households when a disaster such as floods and earthquake strikes. This was incidentally done with the IOM. 40,000 shelters were built. No carbon emissions, no trees were felled. 1,750 villages were covered. 300,000 persons were housed. So you can see only clay and low energy lime and renewable bamboo. That's all that we've been using. Please again, I don't know why my thing gets stuck. You can see this particular kind of housing that has been done mostly for the rural areas, but also in some urban areas. We work a lot with the communities. We train them, give them the skills, and most of them are really built by them themselves. Because once you train people, once they understand how to build a strong, reliable methods of construction, then they are able to make a lot of things themselves. And this is what we are trying to do. This is my rights-based model where you have all kinds of basic necessities are given. And we put a lot of tutorials, video tutorials on the YouTube, open source, where people can watch it. And really, many of them have started to build themselves as well. Plus, we are providing quite a lot of training as well. So, yeah. So this I wanted to just show you very quickly is a special way of building, which is prefabricated bamboo structures, which are extremely strong. Sorry. So you can see that you can make them under supervision. They can be done anywhere. They can be transported anywhere. And this has turned out to be a very good system. We've been using it since 2015. In many hundreds of these units have been built, first in the earthquake area, then in the flood areas, and everywhere they've done well. And the same panels can be used for all kinds of other structures, like from 12 feet to this is 12 by 18. And then again, if you add more, you can make it into a bigger octagon, and you can even use a dome on it. And these can be all community structures that are all made with bamboo and so on. And then, sorry, let's see now. Yeah, and this I just wanted to show you how we are now training. And this is a training program conducted in Islamabad, where young architects actually joined in and they are learning how to build with bamboo. We've conducted this in several places, in Karachi also recently. And as you can see that, young architects and students are really involved in this. And this is what it turns out to be. So it's really an urbanized form of what we've done for the rural areas. And I think that's all possible. Next time. So then, because we do this house sale training through engagement through training and empowering people to be able to do a lot of things themselves, we've developed a model for urban slums. We haven't been built so far, but I think it's ready to be built. And at $800, basically $125,000, you can make really affordable self-built zero carbon structures. These are incremental. Stage 1 is 1 safe room, eco washroom, and earthen Pakistan chula, and it reduces waste and pollution through training, compost from WC waste, compost from kitchen waste, and so on. And then, of course, municipality service we need. And then this I wanted to show you just as an example of what it is, a kind of a sketch for it, that with one room you can start and you can keep on adding on. This is the second stage with the added veranda and the courtyard and everything, and the third stage is with 2 rooms, like 1 room upstairs and also another veranda. And then I thought I'll just discuss with you very quickly something that we've done for the city of Karachi in the most congested and an area which suffers from the worst of urban blight. I mean, you have to go in there to see how bad things are, full of garbage, full of all kinds of attachments which should not be there. No trees, no kind of vegetation, nothing there, and its neglect is unbelievable. So basically, we believe in restricting motorized vehicle, promoting zero carbon structures in the city, like housing and public toilets, kiosks, garden pavilions, converting streets and urban spaces for outdoor recreation. Because I believe the streets can now become the place where everybody wants outdoor places. Additional spaces for plantation and kitchen gardening, aquifer wells to drain stormwater, porous pavements using permeable materials for rainwater, municipal compost and garbage bins and waste collection, creation of wetlands and biodiversity where possible, creating clearing peripheries for effective rainwater drainage also. And then so this has to be a partnership. I just wanted to show you this particular sketch which we developed. This was a street which was full of congestion and awful. And now you can see, if you see the pictures later, this is all clean, and we've got 4 Miyawaki style forests in there. So there's greenery, there's biodiversity there now. We get butterflies and we get birds, and it's become a really nice cultural activity area as well. And there are food courts and paving is all done with. It's all terracotta paving. This has been actually made by women who used to be beggars in Makli, which is a great World Heritage Site about 2 hours drive from Karachi. So anybody who visits Karachi, I would very much encourage you to go to Makli, definitely. So if you can just see what is going on here. And then this is how we've done it. On the left, you see the state of the environment as it was, and on the right, you see how it's been transformed. So there's climate smart, low carbon eco-urbanism that mitigates impact of congestion, urban floods and urban heat, zero concrete and steel usage, tree groves and sponge pavements are the ones who are attributing to it. And again, very quickly, there's a lot of water conservation going on there with porous pavements. There are aquifer wells, local plant species that reduce water consumption, and also rainwater drains into those green areas. The dense forests and free sea air movement now for reduction of urban heat. You go there, it's a different area altogether. Although I think we opened it only about in March, when really the work was still going on. And just to see the greenhouse gas prevention to just stopping the use of cement and steel, and 14,000 square feet of terracotta pavers, lots of bamboo covers for the trenches, and the recycled wooden posts. And then heritage restoration, and you see on the right, we are very keen that buildings that are historic should not be demolished, because if you put something new in their place, you have even more carbon emissions. And we've got to stop doing that. Plus, of course, they're the ones that give you so much, the city, the identity. And then on the left is pollution-free environment, no motor fumes, no visual clutter, 600 trees that absorb carbon, clean air, improved biodiversity with birds, butterflies, and beehives that I mentioned. And then there's also urban, flood and heat islands have been mitigated. There's water conservation, aquifer wells, 2,000 square feet of porous pavement, 12,000 square feet of permeable pavers, and lots of plantation. So this is what I see for the future of my city, and I wish that we could just implement this kind of a concept everywhere. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm most grateful to you.
Thank you very much, Yasmin Lari, CEO of the Heritage Foundation. I think this is very comprehensive and then very Pakistan context is the GHG emission and the climate change impact, what it can do in the urban area and the slum area. I think that might be we can invite the Grace Lee, CEO of the Gaia Consult. I think she might have some kind of the very aligned issue with the Yasmin Lari, because she is a very specialist of the social inclusion and then gender and the environmental assessment. So I invite you to the Grace Lee. Thank you very much, please.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, well.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm going to just open my slides. Okay, can everybody see my presentation slides?
Yes, it is very clear.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. So basically, before I start, I'd like to really thank all the presenters previously actually made an excellent presentation. I think the first 3 or 4 presenters were actually talking about the overall actually policy and the circumstances of the slum areas in the middle of the rapid urbanization trends in Pakistan. And the last presentation by Ms. Larry was very invigorating and insightful. And I was a little bit speechless because all these pictures are so beautiful. And then it was highly important presentation in a sense that while the previous presentation was regarding the technical and the actually financial and policy level actually discourse, Ms. Larry has actually brought up the issue of the social culture consideration from the architectural perspective. And she importantly mentioned the social justice issue in terms of the actually city rejuvenation program. And then this is related to my presentation topic as well, which is social inclusion and gender on the LH project. I'd like to just mention this, that the eventually, basically, this social cultural consideration will point to the much more locally contextualized and culturally sensitive approach and solution that is required for our approach. And this will actually make us think about appropriate and adaptive technology to the local context and importance of the grassroots communities who clearly shown their capacities to be able to actually mobilize themselves to find their own solutions. And then what is really important at this point is what, as Ms. Larry has mentioned, would aim to a very low cost or the zero cost compared with the more conventional engineering approach, which means that's going to be more affordable actually approaches in the local context, and that better broaden the scope of the beneficiary. And I think that includes, that actually signifies a better social inclusion. And then I'd like to actually talk briefly about this project. Okay, I don't have to talk about the figures because everybody was talking about how mind-boggling all these issues are. It's incredible that the Karachi has more than like 14 million population there, and half of them are in below the national poverty line and also in the slum area. According to my actually finding, there are about like 600 slum areas in Karachi. And then, as we all are aware, there is the Orangi town, which is the largest Asia's slum town. We all know. And then as part of this consortium team hired by the LH, we are fully geared to actually do our project. And then we are planning to visit the sites indeed in Karachi as a sort of one of the exemplary candidate cities in the late November. And there we could possibly see exactly what's going to be the circumstances. And we are very much looking forward. Currently, we are at the stage of feasibility study, and then we are also doing the initial environment and social analysis. And then we understand that this project is in partnership with the UN Habitat, and then this is also in conjunction with the 5 million housing programs of Pakistan government in the future. And having said that, I think that clearly shows the basic social characteristic of this program. As LH has mentioned, the organization has a long history of actually targeting this mid and low income household in Korea to be able to actually provide affordable housings. And that practices and that actually experiences could be actually tapped to apply to the Pakistan context here. So I think the project itself has high social value itself because of the target group it's aiming and because of the design actually it's actually planning. Okay, this is one snapshot which has been provided by the UN Habitat. We have actually shortlisted some of those districts in Kach Abadi in Karachi, and some of the places we will actually visit. As we see clearly, the UN Habitat has shown some of the clear actually indicators, social and also other the basic service success of the area. What is also important here is that some of those social characteristics of each of those districts and then this area. partly because of the historical and political factors, and partly because of this urbanization process. We found out that all these kacha abadi in different cities have a different combination of the different ethnic groups and different actually social problems or the social issues. For instance, because of your actually independence movement, there's been some Indian actually migration that actually came to come to the territory of Pakistan, and also the separation of Bangladesh, and also the recently some Afghanistan actually militias and Afghanistan affairs also make actually some influence on those combination of the residents in Kachabadi, which is saying basically that without understanding this subtlety of the issues and then social dynamic of the cities, we won't be able to clearly see exactly what's the community's governance and what's the social and other issues that this community wants to tackle. So we need a very kind of precautious and subtle approach to understand the dynamics of this community. Because eventually, as you have mentioned, when you talk about the actually revitalization of the urban slum areas, area is just the open physical space. I think eventually we are talking about the people and community. So we have to revitalize the community itself by actually, leaving them actually away from all these projects as a beneficiary. We won't be able to actually call it a revitalization or the rejuvenation or the renewal program. So I think that's what is really important here. Okay, what we also found is that the government's actually carrying out a very actually a vigorous regularization and improvement program, which is has been actually there for years. And then we found that some of those areas has been actually already complete in this program. Others are work in progress, and others areas are yet to be actually covered by the program. So we need a more subtle approach to understand by doing certain kind of zoning, exactly what's the current status of this regularizing process in particular district and area. So when you talk about the Kachi Abadi, we are not talking about one homogeneous group. We have different social, political, and economic context. We have different actually gradations or the variation of the land tenure and the linkage to the local development land use planning, and also the different affordability and access to the social infrastructure. We also want to see that what was the actually impact on the COVID actually of the people, especially here, because they are much more vulnerable than the other normal areas. So these are some of the issues we want to cover. Because of the reason why we are doing this is that we want to make this project much truly socially inclusive, targeting the truly vulnerable groups. And the second issue is the gender. As you see here, the performance in gender equality and gender empowerment is not too good nationwide. And then even compared with other actually developing countries of the similar economic levels, Pakistan is not really faring well. So I think we could actually imagine that in the dearth of the data available, as this UNICEF report has mentioned here, the situation of the women in the Kachabadi would be even worse. I think it's needless to say. So in terms of the climate change disaster risk and also the pandemic risk, you can imagine those actually vulnerable groups, including women, will actually be hit hardest. So I think we would need a very strong gender component in terms of actually designing and carrying out this project. These are some of the illustration, although we need to really confirm exactly what's the actually ground reality. Based on our understanding, if you can actually see some of those illustrative modules we want to apply for this CDM project, this is going to be kind of primary and immediate impacts on women. Once again, I'd like to actually highlight that, improving the water and sanitation, waste actually conditions, or the lighting, these are all very, I should say, intuitively and immediately benefiting women and helping the gender equality. I think it's self-explanatory. I don't have to really explain any further, but that's not going to be enough. We'd like to really make more proactive measures to actually empower women by taking a certain standard measures. As I have shown on the actually bottom level, in our preparation stage, our field survey will be actually gender disaggregate manner, and we will also take into consideration as much as possible this project design and planning will consider this gender aspect. And then also in terms of the beneficiary, we will try to include the women, and also we'd like to include the even participation of the women in all this governance and decision-making process. So this is going to be some of the procedural due diligence we want to do in terms of gender. In a nutshell, I think we can consider two different dynamics. In a short term, it's more micro or the meso level of the approach. As I said, with the highlighting or the emphasizing on the vulnerability and gender screening, we could actually make this project more socially inclusive and gender sensitive, and also more empowerment measures we'll try to actually factor in the design of the project. And for that, we would definitely need a field survey to be able to really understand exactly what's the most relevant vulnerability factors in the local context. So that's the reason why we will have to visit the project site and then the potential actually beneficiary communities. However, in the longer term, in a broader context, since this project will be actually in conjunction with this much bigger, 5 million housing project, I think eventually this host community should not be exempt from actually enjoying the benefits of this program. They should be the prioritized actually community beneficiary for this type of project, housing project. And secondly, this is sort of like suggestion. Since UN Habitat is working very hard in Pakistan, perhaps based on our experiences with this project, we could actually kind of establish a Kajja specific framework for social inclusion and gender mainstreaming. For that, we could come up with some kind of like good practice experiences, and also building up some kind of tools. And that's going to be very beneficial for any future replication and future projects. So I'd like to actually highlight these two. But at the end of the day, what is really important is the actually, engaging the host community and let them be participatory, very active agents, and then members of the whole program. I think that's going to be a very important factor. As a kind of case study, which I found very interesting, one of the actually Pakistani scholars actually put down this article, and this is about how this Orangi town in Karachi has coped with the COVID-19. In a nutshell, it's basically saying that the importance of the community governance. With the good governance, the distribution of the rations was actually successfully doled out to the most vulnerable groups without actually elite captures in the beginning. And there has been very minimum actually conflict. I think this poses some kind of hope for us. By engaging the good governed actually communities there, I think we would be able to actually minimize any kind of social tensions or the conflicts in terms of this project. So I'm very hopeful to see these communities. And then I'd like to wrap up my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Grace Lee. It was the very holistic approach for the social inclusion and the gender issue to find the data and the further analysis in the field mission. Very thank you. Yeah, very thank you to your presentation, and I believe that it was inspired all the participants. And we work for the policy and the finance and then some project. Okay, Alip Hassan, you mentioned in the report that he is one of our technical advisor. Sometimes I think that Mr. Jawed can provide some more information about Alip Hassan. He is in Karachi. I think that all the presentation is over. So I will over to the Faiga. Faiga, please.
Jay, I will like to join you in thanking all the presenters, because certainly it's a very timely and a very good opportunity to move towards concretizing the project design that we are moving forward, and we will be taking up that initiative very soon. So it is an excellent input, and I really like to thank all these speakers, particularly Mr. Johan John, General Manager, Global Business Department of Land and Housing Corporation, Mr. Wasim Hayat Bajwa, Executive Director, Naya Pakistan Housing Authority, Ms. Yasmin Lari, CEO, Heritage Foundation, and Ms. Grace Lee, CEO, Consult Korea. Honestly, it's a good selection of these speakers, really focusing to the hardcore issues of Pakistan. And I can see a lot of opportunities, like you said about Arif Hassan. We are one team. UN Habitat is very closely aligned and associated with all Mr. Arif Hassan, Ms. Yasmin Lari, and a few of our very capable and good experts in the housing sector. So we are very happy, and I like to really thank them all, and will wish to have carried forward through their cooperation in designing of the project document to really contribute to the aspirations of the lowest strata of urban population. Thank you very, very much. Back to FICA. Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I want to thank you all the speakers for very comprehensive presentations and the remarks. Now we are in our discussion session. Anyone who wants to ask question to the presenters, they can just raise their hand and I will give floor to them, or otherwise you can post your question in the chat box. So first we have Miss Annie Nasser. Please take the floor.
Thank you very much. I would like to appreciate a very, very informative and really very practical and reality-based presentation by all the presenters. And we really learned a lot, and we can learn from your experience conducting these large-scale projects. Here I would like to say, I am Annie Nasser. I represent Sunbeams. Sunbeams is conducting a community development project in the peri-urban areas of Islamabad. And we have a signed agreement with government who has given us one whole union council named Shaladita. And we have already executed a number of things to do with clean and green and environmentally friendly development. And I would just love, when I was listening to Yasmin Lari, when I was listening to Ms. Grace and all these speakers, I would love to bring all these concepts to bear on this entire Union Council, and perhaps we can do some, ecologically responsible development over there, because some of the areas you have talked about, there are slums there, and there are already urban slums, and then it's very hard to replace. But this is an area which is a rural area, because Islamabad is expanding. It is fast going to be urbanized. And there are historical treasures there and natural forests and urban treasures. And I would like to preserve those. So we can perhaps
Annie, you are muted.
Project. I would love to tie up and do a project in this area, which seems very relevant to your initiatives. Thank you. And please tell me how I can do that.
I like to assure Annie Nasir that she is most welcome to contact us, and we will certainly connect her and with Yasmin Lari and other experts. And I can see an opportunity in Islamabad at least to showcase how changes can, how I mean the slum and this the situation can be improved through planned interventions and protect and preserve the ecology as well as the historical monuments and heritage of the area. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. And if you could just give an email address or something that I can contact later. Thank you.
Okay, I will post it in the chat box. So, ma'am Yasmin Lari, would you like to answer Miss Annie?
In this kind of an activity, and that she wishes to really take it forward. And certainly all of us would like to help her. So please be in touch through UN Habitat, of course, and we'll see what we can do, because we need to bring some sanity into the whole system. But I really wanted to say to Grace that it was really a spot-on presentation. And whatever she said, really, I cannot tell you how it gladdened my heart. I mean, I'm just so pleased to hear somebody talking about really inclusion of women, talking about social aspects, talking about culture, which you feel is not the right of the poor, but it is very much so. And you cannot imagine that you need really much better design for those who have nothing than the ones that we give to the rich. And this whole thing, what I wanted to also say was that really when you work with communities, only then you can make a headway, especially in Kachi Abadis. Because a very complex situation, as you know, as Grace has very competently highlighted all the issues. And those are the ones that we can really bring together. And then I also wanted to tell you my experience about women. You know, all the work that we do in these poorest of the poor areas, is the women who are leading every effort. They are the ones who make a difference. And this, of course, Pakistan is known to be conservative and women are held back, but you give them a chance and you will see how they'll spearhead everything. You will see how the difference they will make. So I'm just so happy to hear that these are plans to be able to engage women, to be able to put them in the forefront, to try to see how we can do things with them. And if we really concentrate on them, you will see a whole transformation. I can assure you of that. But that's what I've seen. I did not know myself about this, about my country. But I can assure you that's possible. And so please do bring in these social, cultural aspects and certainly about gender equality. That is very much needed, because women and the children are the worst sufferers in all these situations. And we've got to start concentrating on them. And you will see that they will, you know, that will give us very good dividends. That will show how things can be done. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am Yasmin Lari. Now I would like to give floor to Mr. Awais Ahmed. Please unmute yourself.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. Myself Awais Ahmed. I am senior lecturer in the Department of Industrial Design, University of Gujarat. My question is, first of all, I really want to thank all the participants, particularly Ms. Dari. First of all, initiatives taken by the government of Pakistan to take climate change seriously are really commendable, and but according to my research and understanding, the initiatives taken by the government are highly insufficient. For example, the government have promised to build 5 million houses. That are actually an unrealistic goal, saying the economic situation in Pakistan, the current GDP situation, and loan payment and defense spending. But the question I really want to ask Mr. Bajwa and Mr. Javed is that how the government is planning to build 5 million houses while the price of the building material has increased substantially in the recent 3 years. For example, the cement price, the steel price, the granule price, and the brick price has almost doubled in last 3 years. And seeing these statistics on board, we have just built a few thousand houses, and the entire situation, the promises, the commitment to build 5 million houses is far away and unrealistic, seemingly unrealistic goal. So what's the plan? How you are going to do it in remaining 2 years? How you are going to build 5 million houses and plant 10 billion trees in remaining less than 2 years?
If you allow, may I first just
yes, sir, please
ask?
go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Awais. Your concern is very valid, and we understand. It was an ambitious plan. The plan was initially looking at the initial shortage and just to gear up everything and to just establish to create some economic activity. But recently, with the year and so, the prices have really jumped to rock where it may not be possible to give the affordable housing what we are looking at. But the government is on it. Government is whatsoever is possible by the government by reducing the taxes and whatsoever subsidy is possible We are just giving it. The issue of us is this, that in fact, there was no system available at that time when we started this concept. Earlier, all the programs which were launched by the previous governments, Junejo era, then by Apna Ghar, number of initiatives taken in housing, but they were not sustainable. So this time, we mainly focused on the policy, on a model which may sustain and which may go along. And in that, what we understand that the major issue is funding, because the initiative is basically from the private sector. And we have to just enable the home owners or the individuals to get some home mortgages. The home mortgage, the mortgage finance facility was not available anywhere. So we focused on that, and we just kept on steering the private sector. We just try to improve the financial institutions. Even the banks and the financial institutions, they still have capacity issues. Our private sectors, they have the capacity issues. Our development authorities, they have the capacity issues. So all those issues have to be addressed. But I think we are on the right track. We established the model, some initiative has taken. If this process just goes on, and I believe down the road, it will be able to deliver, and it will definitely minimize the supply and demand gap. Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Faika, can I also respond to
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Owen?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. All
extent, I
right,
have-
Mr. Owen, your question is very valid, but you need to understand that the presentation that we have made, and if you have really heard carefully, you have seen that the induction of Kachi Abadi program into the 5 million program is a big initiative, and providing shelter to 5 million, if we include and if we start this program, and if we succeed, you will see that the 5 million target is very much attainable. Why? Because 30 to 40% of our urban population out of 75 million are living in slums, in Kachi Abadis. And the only 5 million is minuscule of the total volume of the quantum of the population, or the size of the population that live in these slums. What do they have? They already have the land, and many of the all the provincial governments have declared many of the Kachi Abadis as regularizable. UN Habitat has already made assessment, and UN Habitat is very close to initiating the pilot in Karachi. And you will see that if we make them, if we transfer the ownership right and improve the living environment, so they will have regular shelter, a legal shelter, and that will include into the overall 5 million target. So it is not really impossible. And urban generation program, like Mr. Wasim Bajwa said, it is also going on in Karachi. So we are very much on the right track, and we are learning, you know. It is learning from doing. Learning by doing is the way forward. So government has started kind of a unique proposition. The best kind of a proposition is available to deliver housing at the present moment. And this is very much affordable even to the low income population, if you consider that they have now a mortgage facility after transfer of the land ownership. Then everybody loves to have a good shelter, good house. The only challenge is they are not able to afford. So don't be so skeptical because there has to be a very bold step, in all fronts to confront the challenges. Similar is the case for 10 billion tsunami plantation. So it is not something, and I can see Yasmin Larry would also like to take the floor, and the kind of designs and the kind of material that she has proposed is so cost effective. More than that, even if you know that NED University has a consortium of 38 universities working on housing challenges of Pakistan, with Dr. Sarosh Lodi, the Vice Chancellor, Dr. Shoaib. They are experts, and we have UN Habitat has very close interaction with them, and Yasmin Larry would probably throw more light on these issues. So I give the floor back to Faika and for Yasmin Larry. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yasmin Larry, do you want to add something?
Yes, okay, thank you very much. I thought I'd said quite enough, but certainly I think the issue is really very complex. I think on the one hand, Pakistan government or Pakistan feels that they have to go into the rat race of industrial development. And the only way that can be done is if industries are patronized and if more steel and cement factories come up or there's more production there. Now we know that because of them, we have this enormous damage to the environment. So on the one hand, of course, there's a fantastic program of these billions of trees, which is of course mitigating the issue. But on the other hand, we are constantly adding on to the environment. All these greenhouse gas emissions are happening. And the more we build with concrete and steel, the more we will get it. So my plea really would be, and I really think this is a very good question as to how we're going to reach that 5 million target. But we can only do it if we mobilize. And I think Grace also alluded to this, that if we involve communities, if we empower them to be able to build a lot of things themselves, if the materials we use are locally sourced and not brought from somewhere else, if we train them how to build stable and safe houses, or construction quality is improved by training, and people, I can tell you, are ready, they want to learn. If that can happen, then you can reach the target quite easily. And really, this program, which will be fantastic, the slum upgrading and regeneration of that area, can provide the opportunity for us to not only work with communities, to bring women forward, for them to take the lead. And then I think we can really achieve the target in no time, because it can go so fast. It's faster than any industrialized system. So I'm all for it, and I feel, as Javed Saab has very, correctly said, Habitat is there. All of us professionals who are working in this field are there. We'd like to make a difference in the country. So by all means, let's work together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Now the next question is for Mr. Inhun Yon. That how the alleged project in Pakistan be beneficial for slums and Kachi Awadis in Karachi, and what are the lessons learned while you implemented a project in Mumbai? Mr. Inhun Yan, are you online with us?
Yeah, thank you for your nice question. For the project in Karachi, we are at the very beginning stage to plan the structure of this project. We are learning and studying of the methodologies and local communities. So I'm not sure I can give you the right answer for the question, but basic structure is like this. We are finding the methodologies to provide improving living conditions and to minimize carbon emissions. And we are working on this. And we are also working on studying the local communities to find the best solutions for the best neighborhoods. And the basic structure is we are investing in the solutions for emission reduction and we are going to get investment resources from the CER sales. We can get the CERs from the UNFCCC by reducing the emission, and then we can sell the CERs to the Korean industries in the market in Korea. So that's the way how we secure the fund for the urban revitalization in Karachi. And regarding the project in Mumbai, it is a totally different approach. That is not a kind of urban revitalization, but it is urban redevelopment. So there is a huge difference between the two communities. In case of the BKC neighborhood in Mumbai, that is owned, the land is owned by the government, and the building structures are also owned by the government, and the government workers are living there. So we have limited impact to the general citizens or local residents. Most of the residents are government workers. So so the government decided to resettle the government workers and redevelop the region and build the new quarters and resettle the government workers back to the existing area, and utilizing the benefit of increased FAR, increased flow spaces. They can provide more spaces for other public uses, like for immigration houses, or they are also thinking about building a high court building within the town. So there's kind of different approach, and we are making use of the bilateral loan from the Korean government, and we are also trying to invest our own resources to some of the buildings in the region. So that's kind of brownfield redevelopment project in Mumbai. And for the project in Karachi, Pakistan, we are considering it is brownfield, but it is a revitalization project without tearing down the walls and structures, and without resettling the residents out of this town. So thank you for your question, and I hope my answer was helpful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. In-Hun Jion. Now, the next question is from Ms. Hamna, and it is for Ms. Grace Lee. And the question is, what are the strategies to engage communities, specifically women, for successful project development and its implementation?
Okay, thank you very much. As I said, in November, we are visiting the project site, but this is the first time, and we will have another visit actually after a while. So during this time, we are basically listing up the key local stakeholders, and we are doing the mapping and analysis. And we will make sure to include the most vulnerable groups as part of the participants of these all consultation activities. And then knowing the cultural, actually, characteristic of the men and women issues in Pakistan, I would like to have a separate, actually, focus group discussions with women in Kachi Abadi. In that way, they could secure their own, actually, space and actually liberty to be able to freely express their views. What we want to do at this point is that identifying exactly what's the sort of difficulties they are facing in day-to-day life, and how these project components could potentially actually benefit them in what manner. Of course, ideally, as we have said earlier, that if we can actually integrate gender perspective into the design of the project, that's going to be extremely good. Otherwise, we'll make sure to actually include them in terms of actually identifying the households, for instance, maybe you could consider prioritizing some of those female-headed households, even within the Kachabadi areas, as a primary actually beneficiaries, given to their vulnerability. So in that way, we'll try to make sure to engage them in every step of our actually implementation, so that they can evenly or even better benefit from these projects than the others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I will give the floor to Mr. Mubin for the question, and this will be the last question of our session.
Hello, are you listening me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mubin.
It looks like your main focus is on Karachi city. I just wanted to know that why don't you do this in Islamabad city or Rawalpindi? Here are so many slums, and you can do slum upgradation very much easily, as a lot of research is already being carried out, and you can take help from that. And it is easy to do this in these cities, as Karachi is much more complex and much more bigger than these two cities.
Thank you very much, Mubin. I would like to pose this question to Mr. Javed. Can you please answer his question? We have just 2 minutes left. Mr. Javed, can you please answer the question, Mr. Mubin? So if he is not around, we can, I'm sorry, Mubin, he is not around actually, but currently the project, LH project is in Karachi. We are doing a lot of assessments all together in Karachi, Peshawar, and Islamabad also, and the sites are not confirmed yet, and but our initial assessment showed that Karachi is a city which actually needs the financial support immediately. So with this, we came to the end of this session, and I would like to thank you all of the presenters and the participants for their very interactive participation in this session. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Ms. Paiga. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
For a
everyone.
nice session. Thank you
very much.
Bye.
It is really informing and
Mm.
revealing session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I am posting my email address.
Paiga, we are not going to have the photo time together.
Yeah, we can have some time together, but I
Yeah.
technical team
yeah.
asked to end the session because it's our time is ended.
Can you give it the 1 minute? And I think that we can open the camera, and then maybe we can take the snapshot together for 30 seconds, please.
Yeah,
open-
sure,
yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
If everyone can just switch on their video so that we can take a picture.
Paika, I am back. Actually, something happened to my system and I got off the line. So I am back for
we are now about to take the picture. Just we all are just switch on the video so that we can take the picture.
Yeah.
So Jay, thank you very, very much. You were very supportive, and all the questions posed by the participants were excellent. Hope we have responded, and we are moving forward. So we need everybody's cooperation, and we are ready to really make the best attempt to achieve the 5 billion housing goal and the target. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I took the snapshot, and I will provide all the snapshot via the email. Thank you very much for all your kind support and the contribution and the participation. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jawad.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Take
you.
good
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye bye.
Okay, great. Bye-bye. Okay,
Bye.
everybody.
Thank you,
Yasmin,
Mr.
Larry,
Ali Khan.
Wajba Saab,
Thank you. You're welcome.
John, we are grateful to you. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Welcome. It's all because of your
Thank
assistance.
you,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you.
We will remain connected, inshallah.
Definitely. Definitely.
Inshallah. Yeah. Thank you.
Inshallah.
Okay. Bye.
Jangir, well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Abbey Technologies, for your support. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Ikram, can we get the chat box so that we can save the contacts of the personals. Ikram, are you online with us?
I will send you later.